for the most part, a lot of the custom music they had in the game didn't seem to fit too well with me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the title theme of Twilight Princess orchestrated?
The title, the trailer song of Don't Want You No More was played in the introduction of Twilight Princess. So it was the orchestrated version. So it was technically in the game, but it wasn't in
the game.
It wasn't used like within
gameplay
aspect.
Yeah, it was in the game, but it wasn't actually in the game.
Well, we kind of went out of the boundaries we set for this topic. It is a bit broad. One thing that I like to say, you mentioned the spirit tracks. It actually has one specific song which stands out in the whole game, and that's the final boss, the Melodies theme. It's a great example how Nintendo can make a new Zelda song and make it feel like a Zelda song.
Yeah, that Melodies song, the entire thing, like the music during the fight, when you combine with all the spirits. Oh, I'm sorry, spoiler, and play music with them. You
ruined the game for me, Nate.
The whole game's ruined. It actually fit really well. So we're gonna try to move on then from that topic because I think we're starting to run in circles. We'll talk then about the difficulty in Zelda, and specifically about the Spirit Tracks difficulty and predictions of what we think about the difficulty for Zelda Wii. We'll start with Caseman.
Well, I think Spirit Tracks kind of upped the difficulty a little bit just because people had Phantom Hourglass, which is a very similar game, to teach them a lot of the basic mechanics so they could just move ahead and go a little more advanced with players. So that's why you experienced a little bit more of a difficulty. But in regards to Zelda Wii, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more like new gameplay just in regards to the Wii Motion Plus, and so that'll be setting a lot of players in a new world that they aren't used to. So I'm sort of thinking that the next Zelda Wii will probably be a little bit easier, just so that the new players to the new gameplay style won't be overwhelmed with too many enemies or difficulty with health or anything like that.
Well, if Nintendo really used Phantom Hourglass as an easy game and then made Spirit Tracks the hard game with the same mechanics, it's really a stupid excuse to do so. Spirit Tracks was harder than many other previous Zelda games. I mean, I've rushed the game in 3 days to get the walkthrough done, and it did feel a lot harder. But the thing is, the Zelda Wii, again, if they make it easier just for the sake of the controls, just because of the new controls, it's not really going to be a smart move, because puzzles aren't really relevant to the gameplay. And if I get a hook shot, if I walk into a temple and I see a circular mark on the wall with a red dot in the middle, I already know what kind of boss I'm gonna have and what kind of item I'm gonna find in the temple, and it makes it a cakewalk. Basically, it's not difficult at all as soon as you know what you have to do.
I kind of agree with both of you. I think that the overall control scheme is going to make Nintendo want to make the game easier in terms of combat, only because it's new, and if it's hard, at least if it's hard in the first couple hours of the game, it could turn people off. One thing I've always wanted Nintendo to do is progressively make the game harder, and they don't seem to do that. As easy as it is at the beginning is as easy as it is at the end. Like the final fight with Ganondorf, especially the final 2 phases on horseback and sword fight, were like easier to me than the monkey spanking baboon in the beginning of the game. So it's like the fight the difficulty just didn't really increase as the game went on. It just stayed constant, and I don't like that. Like, one thing I want to see change is you get an item in a dungeon, but you don't necessarily kill the boss with that item. Because as soon as... That's the way it's kind of always been. So, say you get the boomerang, and you get to the boss, and you see, something... You see strings. Okay, I've never had to cut strings with a boomerang before. Or you see his eye. Oh, I need to lock onto his eye and hit it with the boomerang. And then he falls down, and I strike it with my sword. Like 90% of the boss fights in Zelda. It'd be nice if they kind of threw you for a loop. They're like, well, here's your dungeon item, but you don't even use it to fight the boss. Or gave you options where you didn't have to use it. Like, multiple ways to kill things, I think, is something I would like to see. And I think that would add its own challenge to the game. Like, yeah, there's always going to be the easy way. Like, you can throw a bomb at something and kill it with a bomb. But if you try to kill it any other way, it's actually hard to do. They kind of did that in part of Majora's Mask, I think, on some of the optional fights. Really hard to kill some of those Stalfos, but then if you use a bomb, it's a cakewalk.
Yeah, but or they could go the other way. They could make a boss that requires several items to kill. The last time I saw that one, I think, was Ganon in Link to the Past. The first time I was disappointed with The Legend of Zelda difficulty was when I was a kid and I finished Ocarina of Time, and the final Ganon fight, and I was like, that's it? He just runs around, swings his sword, acts badass, and then he gets a sword through his skull. Well, in Link to the Past, you had the first phase with him crushing down those borders. Then you had the phase when he was invisible. Then you had to use silver arrows. Then you had to avoid fiery bats and shit like that. It was a complex fight. That's what it lacks.
Actually, I know what you're talking about, but then they kind of did that in the Wind Waker in the final fight. I was actually recently just watching the Chugga Conroy, the Wind Waker, walk through the final fight, because I haven't done the final fight in a while, so I was just trying to remember why I thought it was so awesome. And like, there's 3 different ways you can do like some of the phases outside of the last phase, and part of it involves where you can actually use your bait and throw it in the water, and then shoot the tail with light arrows and stuff. It was like something that I never even thought about using as a strategy when killing him. I could actually use it, and it's an item that you'd never used to kill anything with before. Now you're killing the final boss in the game by putting bait in the water.
Yeah, but that's still not Ganondorf. You're fighting the puppet Ganondorf, but still.
But it's part of the last phase of the fight, like last phase of the game. I mean, just because it's not Ganondorf, does it make it any less unique? Like, Ganondorf's totally overused.
Well, one part of the reason why he seems overused is because he's been made into a complete pussy. I mean, if they made him a fire-spitting dragon titan transformer, I'm sure he wouldn't be overused.
Well, then he wouldn't be Ganondorf anymore, and that's the whole counter argument is, if he's going to have any form, it has to be a pig, or if he's going to possess anybody's body, it has to be Zelda. Like,
here's a suggestion: make a game where Ganondorf takes Majora's Mask and puts it on, and he gets a green face and a yellow suit and.
Dude, Ganondorf combined with Majora's Mask, I think, would be impossible to kill, in my mind.
Unless Link has the Fierce Deity Mask.
Yeah, unless he has the Fierce Deity Mask. Then you just hit one button and he dies.
But I think you brought up an interesting point about throwing the bait in the water to kill Puppet Ganon, because I think a lot of us, once we play through a game, and we know, oh, we have to use this item to kill this boss, or use this strategy to kill this boss. Every time we play through the game, we're going to use that same strategy because we know it worked. And we would be too ignorant to discover or know that there's 2-3 other ways of killing this boss.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like, I know there was 2 different ways to kill, like, Goma in Ocarina of Time. And, because you could stun them in, like, different ways. And I didn't really know that because I always use the same strategy. So, I mean, I think part of it is because we don't experiment, or we're not encouraged to experiment, I guess. And I guess that, I mean, that is partially the fault of Nintendo making things too easy, because they do kind of tell you how to kill a boss before you even fight him. And that upsets me. Things like, basically, if you think back...